Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I'm Martha Zink. For those that don't know me, I've spent the better part of 20 years or so as a FileMaker developer, trainer, and consultant. And now I get to join you from Claris as the head of community and learning. Today, we're going to spend some time on what agentic development looks like with FileMaker. In a moment, I'm going to hand it over to Giuliano Jacobelli, our VP of Product, who will talk about how Claris is approaching this moment and the things behind the work we're about to show you. Then I'll walk you through it in practice, including demos, showing how it works inside a real FileMaker file, and we'll wrap up with what's coming next. Now, just a couple of quick logistics before we begin. We have a lot to cover today, and we won't be doing a live Q&A, but please drop your questions in the chat as they come up. We'll be using them to shape developer content that's coming later this summer, along with any other training or enabling content we can create. With that, let me hand it over to Giuliano.
All right. So a few weeks ago, our CEO, Ryan McCann, published a message titled, How Claris is Building for What Comes Next. If you haven't read it, I'd encourage you to do so by visiting our blog on the Claris website. But the short version is this. Writing code used to be the hard part of developing software application, and it really isn't anymore. The economics of building software have permanently changed. AI has made it trivial to generate a working application from a text prompt. But generating an app and running one in a real business are two completely different problems. Running an application in a real business needs someone who understands the domain, the data, the workflows, the users, and the constraints within that solution has to operate. And this has always been the role of a FileMaker developer. Not to write every line of code per se, but to be the designer and the orchestrator of solution, thanks to a deep understanding of the business problem and the solution space. And even when you do that, the job doesn't stop there. The application still has to be deployed, secured, permissioned, backed up, and maintained across the devices that your organization uses. And that's what FileMaker already is, a unified platform with data, logic, interface, security, and cross-platform delivery. So in the current technology landscape, Claris FileMaker remains the foundation of those solutions. Yet the AI development ecosystem is moving fast, and tools like Cloud Code, Cursor, OpenAI's Codex are changing how developers work across platform, and it's only natural that FileMaker developers expect to get the same way of working and benefits into their trusted platform. For Claris, the fastest and most impactful way to bring that capability to our community is to meet it where it already lives. And that's why we have decided that we're going to make FileMaker a first-class development target inside Agentic coding tools so that you can deploy directly into the platform you already trust using the best AI tools available out there. In a few minutes, Martha is going to walk you through what it means practically with some examples. But before I hand it over, I want to spend a moment to explain how we got here, because I think it speaks for how this community is really an extension of our business. At Claris, the direction of our product, it is constantly informed by the developers in this community. Developers that historically, in multiple areas, have gotten in front of Claris and have built plugins, add-on components, services, full-blown products that filled gaps before we did. And this shift to agentic development is no exception. Talented developers in our community have been building tools that bring AI-assisted development inside FileMaker. And whenever we look at where to invest, we always ask ourselves this specific question about what is best handled entirely as a third-party component through our ecosystem versus what should become a first-party capability of the platform. A healthy ecosystem needs both. And the question really boils down to what is the path that creates most value for the broadest set of developers and ultimately end users. And for platform capability like agentic development, we believe that first-party support is the way to go. And we're working alongside partners like Proof and Soliant to incorporate some of their early work directly into our own platform. By doing so, we fundamentally affect the potential impact of those new capabilities for a few reasons. The first one is reach. A first-party capability is available to virtually 100% of our base the moment they adopt the version of FileMaker that includes it. And the second aspect is integration, because building as a first-party application capability natively inside FileMaker, it means that we can deliver a level of UX and platform-level integration that simply isn't possible when you're building from outside of the product. So the most consequential platform capability deserve the widest distribution and the deepest integration, and that's the call we made in this case. But agentic development as a first-party capability isn't something that we can do in isolation, and that's precisely what the broader community of tool builders benefit from. To deliver it natively as a first-party component, we have to make core improvements to FileMaker that are going to provide more open integration points that our developers can leverage to extend the FileMaker capabilities in this AI era, ultimately making it a first-class agentic deployment target for the whole community. Which brings us to today. What Martha is going to show you now is the type of benefits and developer experience that comes out of that approach and what it looks like to sit in front of an agentic development tool connected with FileMaker and have them work together on a real solution. She'll orient you to what agentic coding actually is, walk you through the tools you'll be using it with, and then take you into a FileMaker file so you can see it in action. So Martha, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Giuliano. As Giuliano mentioned, for a long time, the hard part of building software was writing the code. One of the FileMaker's clearest advantages was that you didn't need to build traditional code to build something real that your clients or users could use. That was a meaningful advantage that we've all benefited from for a long time. But the landscape has changed. A lot of you have already felt it. Some of you have watched.
Martha, Martha, I'm going to pause you for just a second. I think the slides are getting cut off for some reason. Yep.
How's that?
Yeah, there it is.
All right, thanks. It's not a good presentation without something going wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of you have already felt this shift. Some of you have watched clients ask questions you weren't expecting. Some of you have watched peers move to other tools. And some of you have picked up Claude or Cursor yourself and have started experimenting. Today, I'm going to show in more detail how we're investing to make sure FileMaker and our community are best positioned to take advantage of the benefits AI can bring to software development. Now, let's just talk a little bit about AI-generated apps in general. You may have heard of this called vibe coding. Someone describes what they want, the agent writes some code, and something functional appears on screen, similar to any of these things you're seeing on the screen now. It's pretty impressive, and the demos always look clean, but it doesn't end there. Every application that gets built has to live somewhere. It has to run on devices, think like a laptop or a phone or a tablet in a warehouse or in a truck. It has to be deployed so that multiple users can access the system. It has to be secure, managing who has access to what. And when something breaks, and something always breaks, someone has to be accountable for fixing it. And these aren't glamorous problems. They don't show up in demos, but they are hard, and most AI coding tools don't focus on these very critical needs. They hand you something that works on your machine, and then they leave the rest to you. FileMaker developers, however, have been solving these problems for years. What FileMaker provides, and what most people building with AI today will eventually have to figure out from scratch, is the full stack. Data, logic, interface, runtime, security, and cross-platform delivery. This should all sound a little familiar because it's the FileMaker suite of tools that's already integrated. It's already working together, and it's the tools you understand and can control all in one place. At Claris, we are investing on removing the barriers to creating FileMaker solutions while preserving the foundation that FileMaker has provided for a long time. Where it runs, who controls it, what it's connected to, those things stay. So the constraint has changed, but the foundation hasn't and doesn't need to. Now, before we jump into demos, I want to spend just a little bit of time orienting you to what you're about to see, because some of this will be familiar and some of it won't be. Now, I know you're here to see the demos. I know you want to see FileMaker, and I promise we'll get there. Let's start with what you know. A FileMaker solution isn't just a database. It's years of decisions. It's the way records relate to each other, the way scripts are named, the way layouts are structured. You know this better than anyone. Your business logic, the data, and the interfaces that your users interact with every day, it's all in there. Coding AI tools are built to read and write and to reason. Now we're giving those coding agents the ability to read your solutions. And once it understands your solution and how it's built, it can generate things that belong there. It can modify what already exists. It can document what you had never had time to document before, and all while you get to decide what makes it into your FileMaker solution. You've probably heard us talk about AI and FileMaker before. We've built ways to connect FileMaker solutions to LLMs, which give users AI-powered search, and it surfaces information that they couldn't easily get to before. But today is a different layer that we're talking about. The focus here is on developers and on what it takes to build and extend your FileMaker solution. It's about how AI can help you move faster while your judgment stays essential. Now, for today's demo, we'll be using Claude Desktop, which is made by Anthropic. You give it some instructions in plain language, it reads your file, and it does the work that's asked of it. This isn't the only tool you can choose. There are other tools, including Cursor and Codex, just to name a few. And in some cases, you're going to interact with these in a full-fledged app, while in other cases, you can interact through command line, like Terminal. What I want you to take from this before we go any further is that these tools do not replace FileMaker. They're working with it, and they're working from it. FileMaker is still where your data lives, where your solution runs, and where your users are. All right, we're almost to the demos. So now to set the scene, and this is the part you've been waiting for. Imagine you work for an apartment complex and you're tracking tenants, units, work orders, all within a FileMaker solution. It's been the source of truth for years and years. The developer who built it knows it better than anyone. The naming conventions, the table structure, the scripts that handle edge cases that nobody thought to document, that knowledge is in the developer's head, not in any tool. What you're about to see is what happens when something can start from that file, when it can read it, understand how it's built, and work inside it. So we'll start by focusing on the data and business logic. All right, demo time. Here's FileMaker. Should look pretty typical. We've got an opening screen with lots of buttons that do all the things or some of the things. And I'm going to hop over to Claude Desktop, and let's see what it knows about my FileMaker file. So I'm just going to ask it with normal language, and we'll just watch it do its thing here for a minute. All right, let's look at that in pieces. You'll see that it was able to read the tables and fields, along with the way that the relationships are set up. It also knows about the scripts in here, along with a little bit of a description of what the purpose is. And it also provided some general observations about the naming conventions in the file. As I mentioned earlier, coding agents can offer suggestions and changes based on the real structure of your FileMaker file. So here we can see what it knows about the file. Now let me give you a little bit of disclaimer for what you're going to see in the demo for the rest of this. What you are seeing are sped up demos for demo purposes. Some of these tasks take seconds, some of them do take minutes. It depends on what you're asking and how much the agent has to work through. We've edited that down for this presentation. But even the ones that do take a few minutes in real time should be saving you time based on the work that it's doing alongside you. Now let's see how we can add what we can do to an existing solution. So I'm going to start with a really simple script. Let's say that users want to see a list of work orders that are scheduled. I'll ask Claude to write a script that does just that, sorting the work orders in chronological order. Claude's going to give me the ability to preview the script before it actually creates it, which gives me an opportunity to course correct. Now, in some cases, my prompt might not get me what I expect, and I might have to start over with a new prompt. But in this case, I just need a little bit of tweaking. I want to make sure that if it doesn't find any work orders, for it to go back to the original layout. Otherwise, it should sort it like it already has, but to take it to the first record. So there you'll see the rewritten script. If we jump over to FileMaker, you'll see the new script right there. And while I'm here, let me move the custom dialog so it'll show on top of the original layout instead of on the no records layout. So what I love about this is that I have a tool that I can interact with to get close to 100% of what I want through natural language, or I can get it almost there. And then I can rely on what I already know in FileMaker and my FileMaker knowledge to tweak the file itself. So what's next? Let's give it something a little more complex. Let's give it something where we can touch tables, fields, and scripts. Let's say that we need a way to see rental payments for a given tenant for the length of their lease. But it's not that simple because it never is. There's a discount scenario that we need to worry about. For a given lease, we need to potentially apply a discount over the first 6 months, divide it evenly, except not the first month because often that's prorated. So these are the kind of business logic that we deal with all the time. It's going to confirm my logic for me before it suggests the script. And then it'll suggest what it wants to build. So this is a good example of a real business rule described with human words, written the way someone would actually say it to another developer who knew something about the business and knew something about the file. As it starts giving me the preview of the script, you'll see that we have some variables getting set. It's going to follow with a loop to create the records in the payments table. And so we'll go ahead and push that to FileMaker. But before we leave Claude, what if we asked it to do one more thing? What if we asked it to comment the script for us? Now we'll open up FileMaker. And we'll see our documented script. And as someone who has never, ever forgotten to document a script, which I'm sure you can relate to, this is a very welcomed perk. So far, what we've been looking at are ways that an agent can impact the data layer and the business logic pieces within FileMaker. But what about the user interface? In that previous example, we created a new payments piece to the system, but we haven't added any UI for it yet. Instead of going into layout mode and updating the existing layout, we can use the power of the AI assistant to build an interface using web code, which under the hood is a mix of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript technologies. Claude is going to write the code for the interface as well as create the script it needs to support the functionality, which in this case is collecting the payment data. We'll put it in there as natural language. It's going to do some thinking and give us an idea of what it wants to build. What we're seeing here in FileMaker is a layout with a web viewer where we can now see the payment information for a tenant. And here's where things get really interesting. Once you have a screen showing your data, once you get that first visual, it's pretty easy to use your agent to help you refine it. I didn't do it here, but you could add more data on the screen, you could rearrange items, you can make things clickable, and dare I throw it out there, we have the ability to add features like sorting and filtering portals very easily. I know I didn't put it in this demo, but I got to save something for later for future enabling content, I promise. Now, once I created this layout, I realized that I wanted to be able to edit the payment amounts. It was nice to have a screen that I can view, but I know that my users are going to want to be able to manipulate that data pretty quickly. So I asked it to make the payment amount editable, and now I have the ability to do just that. I can change the number for one or more records as payments are received, and it'll update the status. And if I go look in the back end, it's updating the data as well. So I can see those results here in the payments table. Well, what else can I do? What about some UI elements that we're just used to seeing in apps? Something like updating the way a screen loads. Those little things can really refine the experience for a user. And as I was testing this out, I realized that if a tenant didn't yet have a payment schedule, I'd like my users to be able to create that schedule right from the screen. So here, I've added a button to do just that. And that prompt right there was actually what gave me the design of that button, which is interesting because in my head, I had it visually in a different spot. But I really liked the UI treatment it gave me, so I went with it. But you do get the flexibility to make those choices. Those demos touched on the data layer, business logic, and interface. But I think about other scenarios where these tools can help. The scripts that haven't been touched for years, the file you inherited that you had to reverse engineer, the schema change you weren't sure you were ready to make, the documentation that was never written. There's a lot of opportunity here to take advantage of these tools. Now, as I wrap up the demo piece here, I want to take a quick pulse of the room. You should see a poll on your screen in a few minutes through Slido. Based on what you just saw, here's the question. Where do you put yourself today? There are 4 quick options, so please take a minute, and I'll just keep going while you go ahead and answer those. Thank you, Sean. Now, that covered a good chunk of FileMaker development. Scripts, schema, documentation, UI, all of it happening alongside an agentic assistant in a real FileMaker file. But as we wrap up, I want to point out something easy to miss in all of that. None of it required us to change what FileMaker already does for you. The deployment, the way users log in and what they can see, permissions and security, none of that changed. We didn't add a new platform layer or move the data somewhere else. And the developer's knowledge of the business continues to matter. Knowing what to ask for, how the workflow actually runs, where the edge cases are, the tools don't carry that. Earlier, I said that the constraint that changed was writing code, and what you saw today makes that faster for us. But where software runs, who can access it, how it stays secure across devices and time, how it gets updated without disrupting the people depending on it every day, those problems haven't gotten any easier. They're still there, and FileMaker still solves them. We're building tools that can help you build on top of that faster than before. Also, if you're a little overwhelmed at the thought of more tools, I get it. You might look at what you saw and think, that's more surface area, more tools, more places where things can go wrong. Let's just zoom out for a second. Solutions being built today aren't built in a single tool. They're built by a combination of tools that do one or more things well, like a coding layer, a data layer, a delivery layer. FileMaker being part of that picture isn't a compromise. It's actually the whole point. You're not patching something together from scratch. You're adding capabilities on top of an infrastructure that's already handling the hard parts. AI development tools like Claude are where you describe what you need and where the work gets written. FileMaker is where it lives, where it runs, and where your users are. Those are different jobs, and different tools are a great way of handling that. So here's where things stand. FileMaker 2026 ships in June. That release is focused on infrastructure improvements, including native discovery, disaster recovery, and business continuity capabilities. It also lays some groundwork for this agentic development work. If you're interested in what we've shown today and know you'll want to try it as it starts to become available, I encourage you to upgrade to FileMaker 2026 once it comes out to prepare. You can join our upcoming webinar on June 9th to learn more about FileMaker 2026. The registration link will be in the chat. Also, developer previews for the agentic tools are coming later this summer. It's not going to be a seamless one-click right out of the gate. We're moving fast, and fast sometimes means delivering in pieces. And that is on purpose. That's deliberate. Putting these capabilities in your hands sooner matters way more right now than packaging them neatly with a bow and what we want a year from now. Training sessions and learning content are coming before the preview drops because nobody should have to figure this out alone. Documentation will be available with the preview. What I'd ask for you to take from today is this: the platform is moving, real work is happening, and the solutions you've already built are exactly the foundation this next chapter runs on. Thank you.